still here on Election Brief with me, Araba Kumsin. Now, let's go to the Ashanti region, where traders in the Kumasi Central Market say free SHS will be prioritized in their decisions on December 7. The traders at the yam section of the market will not rule out interventions of government's agriculture policies, which they say have positively affected their business. Other incentives like the NBSSI loans and others, which have helped in the recovery of their businesses, are among other factors. Voters' Voice today is from the Subin constituency in the Ashanti region.
Mama di oba ye no ono asia so oba ye no wonyi na di me obi ehu anagufa do ba ye no waye no ma mebre amaye waye no ma mebre ene no mebu okwani enim wade na di a kire tini me pe na anagufa do na jo mama de na bia o se waja no yi ho no waja no ho no o mama di rancho na anagufa do na anagufa do yi na de mra do
Katina na vania kwa na vota hapa na so na tutu wolba o wolwa de bui o do wolwa ne pampia o do wolwa ba do pamp zera alor mus na vania sakwa na da hapa na makala na
Meti way me ka chire way 10 ones papa as me chia bribe me sanchi asment 10 ewa West Lagos afi me ka chire me nana wako school men chia hwe waba wa ya ka ti say ya na shi wa mo
na wa we na time series so by the way na time series
me ba chawo na ba ko ni chawo mama kachira yese woye bibia wa santima wodi godu krate ta ha nyefe sese na manie ye jira santima mu ne kasai ye ne bibia ye sana lo ye sako to de gufo otnase ni abre ye mako school free ye da kania mu free ye bunsio free mama wa manie kotinase aye yie na na so wia bawo mia papa bi president bawo mia president ma the whole Ghana ye hiano na so
entini se aka kwamo baye aka kwamo baye to body 200 ni 500 and okuta 2 cities unya body unya bayire na papa nyami stra so odo abedum ye afi samre ubesa di kunum o Yesu di mu amen
na me to ma fa me say abala ba buso na abonu nyami ba me no buso amara nwanwa wo ya shidi wate amen fafa ya wo ya mayan e ba me mu anyina che wo ba dada musa ma wa ga sa tiri na ba ya yi ado wulu nyansa ni ba why we nyansa ni ba amen e ba li show
me de ti ametu amana na ado no na ado ba ni ma wa ya amana me mienu ba wie school eti me so dia me so metu amana me mani nyina ba sa atu amana eti wa ba me so ya me de na kura de wa home obi antu.
So you heard the voices of some voters in the Subin constituency in the Ashanti region. I have in the studio with me, head of our political desk, Evans Mensah, to do some analysis on this particular constituency. So you heard the woman there. Clearly, Subin is an MPP stronghold. So you would obviously expect that a lot of support would be going for the governing party. But tell us, educate us on the voting pattern in the constituency. I mean, so it's not surprising that a overwhelming majority of the sounds you had, you struggle to find views, especially if you go to the marketplaces, to find voices that will articulate the support for the NDC in Subin. The thing about Subin is where the Kumasi Central Business, it hosts Kumasi Central Business District. And so that's where everything happens in terms of business in Kumasi. The market, we have all those
big businesses or located. So it's a nerve center. So everybody else in the periphery of the Ashanti region sort of converge in Subing. So it's a very important constituency for the NPP in the area. And it's the reason why, the other thing about the demographic of Subing that makes it such an overwhelming area for the NPP is that it is one of those constituencies and districts where you have indigenous Ashanti populations. Ashanti region is a very interesting sort of demographic region because a lot of people who migrate from the north tend and who feel Accra is too far off, when they get to Kumasi, they simply settle. Okay. And that is why Asawase became such a very strong settler community, mostly from occupied by people from the north. And that is why NDC wins Asawase, mainly because of the settlers coming from the north who want to get to Accra, but of course Kumasi is the next best thing, so they settle. But Subing largely is mainly for indigenous of Kumasi, so they are pure Ashantis, and so they vote overwhelmingly for the NPP. Okay. There is one community in Subing that is a settler community. It's called Fanti Newtown. Okay. So if you go to Fanti Newtown, if you look at the Fanti Newtown performance in terms of the results in terms of every elections, that is the area where the NDC does slightly better than most areas. But historically, NPP...
Fanti Newtown, are we to assume that these are people who, migrated from the central region to the Ashanti region?
Yeah, I mean, possibly, yeah. I mean, as the name implies. I mean, so you find people who have the your tongue in that place. And so the NDC does well in that particular part of Subing. But largely, this is overwhelmingly, the NPP has never won that seat with less than 70% of the votes. So it's always 70 and above when they win it. They win it massively. The incumbent is the Deputy Works and Housing Minister, Eugene Entry. The thing about him was, in 2016, he's the second best performing NPP candidate for the area. Okay, he had 77%. The best before him had 78 in 2000. I mean, we know what happened in 2000. It was a massive wave of change. Right. And so for the NPP, I remember there was a lot of controversy leading into the primary itself.
Exactly, I was coming to that. I mean, in the run-up to the primaries, there was a lot of controversies, even surrounding the incumbent himself. So is that going to affect their chances going into the election? The
matter is still in court. Mr. J.B. Dankwa, who, of course, his supporters took the matter to court, is still, of course, challenging the outcome. Why? Because there was a court injunction that meant that the primary should not have gone ahead. But somehow on election day, the EC officials themselves didn't show up because they'd been served with the injunction. But the executives managed to get the primary underway. And as you can imagine, Eugene won the elections. Now there's a contempt case where Eugene Entry himself, the Ashanti Regional Chairman, and other executives have been cited. The court has been looking for them. The bailies have been looking for them to serve it on them for a while. And so it's still raging on. I mean, but as politics, the reason is simple. If you win Subing, if you win the primary, you just throw your hands and just relax and wait to win elections, because you're going to win it. That is why it's so important for the NPP and the candidate. But again, it makes sense if you look at the number. Eugene's number, because see, you're going to win it. But how many more votes can you bring to add to Nanado's national take? Right. Okay, that is what you're looking at. And so if we brought in more than 78%, it makes sense to keep him. Plus, he's a deputy minister also. You know the argument that they made, because he's deputy minister, some of these people, you compare their performance, it's best to keep him, which is really what had docked them in the election. As to whether it will affect them, if Mr. Boache, JB Dankwa, decides to go independent, absolutely is going to be a major issue. The lesson is from what we learned from the current Deputy Speaker of Parliament, who one time went independent and managed to win an election, and then later on when he went to Parliament, crosses over to join the NPP party. Well, we wait to see what happens. Thank you very much. Evans Mensah is head of our political desk here at Joy.